Robin. Happy Friday.
Hi, happy Friday.
So I'm really excited to unpack this week's topic, which is going to be about a parent workshop, because I think it aligns perfectly with the workshop that you and I attended at Weehawken Schools through the Literacy Leaders Network. So just to fill everyone in, Robin and I had the opportunity to go visit some schools in Weehawken, and they're doing some really outstanding work with enhancing their enrichment program. And we have noticed, right, Robin, that our teachers, our parents are also asking the teachers, what can we do at home to help our students meet with success? What can we do at home to challenge our students? And now that summer is approaching, a lot of them are asking us, what can we do over the summer? So, as usual, you came up with a brilliant idea of offering a parent workshop. And so I thought maybe at today's debrief, we could just unpack the workshop and share a little bit about what we intend to do and how we think it might help parents work with kids over the summer.
Absolutely. And, just a couple of things from a teacher's point of view as well. You always want to offer these things to the parents because you don't want that summer slide to go from grade level to grade level. You want practical and easy strategies for parents to use over the summer. And that's what exactly we're going to be giving them at this workshop. They're actually going to be in a workshop model of literacy, and they're going to be taking home take homes that will help guide their children over the summer in some really great questions when reading at home and writing at home with them. Just kind of strengthening that homeschool connection, because we work as a team with the parents in our community. So that's super important to bring them in, to show them how our routines and learning happens in the classroom, so they can, share the same goals at home. It gives them a chance to see their students at work and their growth that they've made. And it's great to give, for equity across, because it gives everybody the same information and resources and support. So I'm just going to go right ahead and share my screen with you on my, my slideshow that I created. So we're calling this parent power, right? Give your child the right edge with parent power, because that's what we're doing. We're empowering the parents at home to use some of these strategies that we've been using all year in school to help now them gauge their child's progress and keep that progress over the summer, so they don't kind of slide back going into the next grade level. And giving them that academic edge through this workshop will enable them to support their child's writing development, give them guided questions to ask their children at home, because a lot of parents don't know what exactly the questions to ask at home, and are wondering, like, how can we help support our children? And they want to be a vital part of their education, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult when you don't know the curriculum and you don't know what we're doing in class.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to add in too is that we're going to focus in the workshop, or at least we've been talking about focusing on the fact that the students are doing the writing and the parents are just talking with them. They're asking them questions, they're engaging them in conversation. So one of the things that I'm worried about when you invite parents to help kids learn to write is that the tendency is to take the pen and do the writing yourself. Like, here, let me write it for you, or here, let me correct it for you. And really, what we're going to try and teach the parents is how to be that thought partner for the students, and then let the students flesh out the writing on their own.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk to them about three different areas that we want them to, be able to focus on with their child at home over the summer. One is a literary analysis about, thinking about what a story, how to understand a message, a character, and why the theme of a story and why the author wrote it. A narrative piece to, character setting, problem solution, and revising. And again, looking back and helping their students gauge their thinking of what makes a good piece of writing. What are those important depth of knowledge questions that you can ask your child when working on comprehension over the summer and writing about your reading. So we're going to start out by showing them, of course, the method that we've been using to plan, which is the iced tea method. We're going to be teaching them a little bit about as a whole group, about this method, so that now they can go home and they can understand the language, the common language that we use at school, and have a conversation with their children about, when they're reading, how to plan, how to structure their writing. They will be familiar with the language. So that's our.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the interesting thing about this is the idea for the workshop came from a parent who was sharing with you that their child was so excited and always talking about this iced tea method at home that they would love to keep it going over the summer. So, the fact that the kids are excited about it and are going home. I mean, how many kids are going home and talking to their parents about the graphic organizer they're using in writing? That I think that speaks volumes. They're really very excited about it, which in turn has encouraged the parents to be a little more involved, and they're enthusiastic about it as well.
Absolutely. And again, these plans, just to remind everybody, have come into, fact, we had the baseline, the foundation of the plan, but they've come into account because of the data analysis that we've been doing all year, looking at my students' writing and really gauging the personalized instruction with those good depth of knowledge questions based on the outcome of the data from both me scoring it with rubrics as well as using AI to score it as well. So the first part that we're going to do for the parents is to describe how do we plan for a literary analysis. Okay, I have different examples linked in here, and I'll just quickly show you of different exemplar examples so that this way parents will understand what their expectation is for a grade 3. And I also put what would their expectation be as going into 4th grade. So I have 2 of those pieces linked in. So that kind of gives, the student who is, on grade level for 3rd grade, the ability to look at this exemplar piece, but it also kind of is a nice enrichment for the students that are going into, obviously going into 4th grade, for a little bit of higher knowledge and a little bit more of that depth of knowledge. So in there, I linked those examples. We'll be showing them those examples, and we'll actually be having the parents not only where they're not writing that night, but they're taking a highlighter and they're going back and they're finding with highlighters, red and yellow and blue and green, what is the introduction? What is the evidence? What is the explanation? Those depth of knowledge questions, and what are the thoughts? So the parents will not be writing that night, but they will be reading detectives, we call them in 3rd grade, and they will be looking for those good elements of the literary analysis so that they can then help their child at home make sure that they have those good elements of a literary analysis in.
That's great. And I love the fact that the parents are going to have their children with them, because the kids are really excited about being the experts at this. So, they'll be able to tell their parents if they're correct or not. If, were they able to accurately, highlight the flipped question, or the evidence that's in the piece. So that'll be great.
Absolutely. And as they gauge their thinking with their child, we gave them some good questions to ask. When they're looking at the eye, some of those good questions to ask in order to pull out that comprehension along with the reading and the writing. Because a lot of the parents, said to me, well, we don't know where to start. We don't know what questions to ask at home that really helps our students get to the next level and progress. So we linked in here different questions for the I, the C, the E, so that as they're talking to their child, they can ask them these great comprehension questions, because that will also play a piece on their progress with comprehension over the summer, not just writing.
Mm-hmm.
The next one we're doing is the narrative planning, and we use the BMMME planning method. And again, from running data all year, we added in the don't just say it, be it also method within the BMME, the middle of that middle of the BMME, because they were when we were running their pieces of writing their narrative, they were not putting in those character traits, the show not tell. The internal feelings and the thinking of the characters. So we also added that in through the year for that more detail-oriented piece of writing for narratives. I've hooked in hook examples for parents here so that they understood what is a hook. You say, oh, to the parent, oh, it's an onomatopoeia, and they would look at you like, an onomatopoeia what? you know so here we have some good hook examples that I've also hooked in for the parents. Some examples of setting, of fact, of question. I've also linked in just additional transition words. Like, a lot of the students at home, forget to put transition words in the summer with their parents, and they don't, quite frankly, know that they need to put transition words in when writing a narrative. So just to have all of these resources at the tips of their fingers, I feel like it's really giving the parents that academic edge that we want them to have in order for them to help their child progress over over the summer. And we have the first, the next, the then, the finally, all just different transition words that they can pull out when they're helping their child write or correcting or looking at their writing. We also have exemplar examples of a narrative as well. So again, what does a 3 on a scoring rubric in 3rd grade look like? But also bridging to 4th grade, and obviously the rationale of why, but also bridging to 4th grade, what does a 4th grade narrative writing prompt look like, and a narrative piece of writing, a response. Looking at these, it kind of gives the parent a landmark of where to go and what the expectations will be. And within there, we also have, as you're talking to your child, and again, this does not always have to be writing, as you're reading a book at home at night, ask these good questions in the beginning. That's going to help with their depth of knowledge, with their comprehension. Just have a conversation with them. It doesn't always have to be written down, but you can have those good conversations. And this gives parents guidelines of what questions to ask during the conversations.
Right. And especially for students who, over the summer, it might be a big ask to get students to sit down and do some writing. But if you're on a steady diet of talking about whether it's, a book the student has read or a movie that you've watched together, and really asking these deeper, bigger questions, I think that kind of work over the summer would be very, very valuable, because the thinking comes before the writing, right? If they have empty heads, they're not going to have anything to write about. And we can teach them all of the graphic organizers and, give them all the checklists in the world. But the fact that the parents are interested in helping students with their writing, this talking about the theme, talking about character, helping them elaborate it just through conversation, is going to be very, very powerful and very helpful. So I'm really looking forward to the workshop. I think it's going to be great.
Absolutely. And along with the NJSLS rubric that we took these questions from, that they need to answer for 3rd grade, we also aligned it to the NJSLA with different kinds of deeper thinking, the higher level thinking questions at the end. Again, just really, giving them that chance for a little bit more of that, enrichment model over the summer. And the last one that we're going to be talking about with the parents is the revision checklist. We have a fun motto in 3rd grade, ITOPCC, check your work to get a 3. And again, parents don't necessarily know, and not to, their fault. They're not teachers. They don't know the NJSLA or the NJSLS standards. So giving them a checklist to go over, and kind of, again, needs to only just be a conversation if they want. How did you start with a clear topic? Check it off in your brain. Just to kind of understand what is expected for them in their writing pieces and their thinking over the summer. It's a nice gauge for them, a nice, starting point and ending point, so that we don't have that summer slump. And it helps parents know these are the expectations. This is my database of resources that I can pull from. We will then rotate through those 3 centers to talk to parents a little bit about those concepts, the ICE-T, the BMMME, and the revising. And then their students will be in another room during this, working with another teacher, and then they will come back in and they will sit together and have a nice conversation and ask them some of those questions, which we'll have on the table for them, not just up here on the slideshow, to gauge their thinking, to to help them finish their piece of planning or writing, or to really gauge their depth of knowledge so that they can practice here and then they can kind of go home and take this knowledge home with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be very eye-opening for the parents as well to see the level of sophistication that the students need to have in order to meet with success when they're writing a literary analysis, or, just the kind of writing that we're asking kids to do is not, it's not simple. It's a little bit complex, and I think the parents are going to be interested in what they can do to help their students over the summer. So yeah.
Yeah, and just a few tricks for success. And again, just helping the parents out over the summer of just some things that we do, turn conversations into prompts, just giving them some of these resources. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Just a few minutes a day, stay consistent and celebrate the effort. And I'm not going to give it away because this will be another episode, Janine, but linked also in, they will also have an enrichment piece that we're going to set up for them so that this way they could, have that last slide that we didn't share yet with anybody for an enrichment challenge over
Yep.
the summer. So if anybody would like our parent resources, our parent power series, please like and subscribe to our channel, because
Yeah.
we will be happy to share it with you and give you some of the great ideas that we have been doing, down here in the 3rd grade. And
Yeah, absolutely. Just reach out. We're excited to share this work. I mean, the name of the channel is Learn, Teach, Lead, and we are learning so much this year, and we're finding that the more opportunities we get to teach it to other people, the more we find other people are taking it and leading the charge. So that's been really the most gratifying part about working on this project with you, Robin. I think that is
Absolutely.
amazing. So well done. It was a great week, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You too, and go parent power. Have
Yes.
a great
See you
Friday.
later. Bye bye, Robin. Bye.
Bye.